What up, y'all? Welcome back. Today I am with the brilliant and amazing Disha Shidham. I met Disha as one of the students in my classes at Foothill, and she changed my life in some significant ways, which I hope to talk about later today. I am really hoping to capture Disha's voice and her wisdom and some of the experiences that she had moving from Foothill College to her transfer and beyond in honor of future generations of community college students. I guess we'll start by saying, Disha, welcome. Will you please introduce yourself and tell the story of your time at Foothill and beyond, what your name is, etc.?
My name is Disha. I went to Foothill from spring 2020, so right after the pandemic actually hit, and then graduated in spring 2023. I graduated with degrees in quite a few different disciplines in biology, economics, English, environmental science, humanities with a literature focus, and math. So I was very busy at my time at
Did you just
Foothill.
say you had five associate's degrees?
It was something ridiculous. I don't know. I just took like literally every class under the sun. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my time at Foothill. I also did work in GIS. So I graduated with a certificate in geographic information systems technology, and then in spring of 2023, I transferred from Foothill to Yale University. And this past spring, I actually graduated with my bachelor's in environmental engineering. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have some really fun memories of the time that we spent. I think it was probably in winter where you were
Yeah.
writing. I forgot, were you taking 20 units that quarter?
It was something ridiculous. Yeah,
And then,
probably.
and I
Yeah.
think you were also working at NASA. Was it
Yeah.
HTML3?
What?
I forget the project you were working at NASA. You were
Oh,
working on
yeah, it was
integrating.
web GPU stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, it was a lot of front end web GPU, trying to do ML in the browser project sort of things.
Yep.
I also was interning at Stanford during that time. So I was working
Yeah.
two
I
jobs
remember
and
that.
taking like an insane number of classes, but I had a lot of fun doing it. So,
I remember, I will get into this later. I really enjoyed watching you and Leo work together.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Because you all would do a lot of, yeah, we'll talk about that, but like that whole process of the applications, writing. I think we had multiple conversations at like 9:30 or 10 p.m. as I was driving home.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember
yep. I
that.
remember that. The
um,
drive home calls. Yep.
yeah. So we'll get into that. I guess I'd love to start by capturing a little bit of the story. What brought you to Foothill College, right? I guess
Yeah.
where'd you grow up? A little bit of
Yeah.
your family
So
and
I grew up in Upper Arlington, Ohio, so a suburb off of Columbus, Ohio, and I graduated high school back in 2015. And so the 5 years between graduating high school and ending up at Foothill, I was working in startups. So I worked on startups in Columbus, in Wilmington, North Carolina, and then finally I ended up in Silicon Valley. And one of my companies, Savy, it was featured on Shark Tank. It was incubated through Stanford's Accelerator, and it was a really incredible experience. I wouldn't give up that part of my life for anything. But just a funny story is that on Shark Tank, the person I wanted most as my investor was Mark Cuban. He was the one who went out first. And he went out specifically because I didn't want to go back to school. This was back in 2018. So I was really in the midst of like trying to get Savvy to work. And on air, I said, no, I want to keep working on this. I am fully dedicated to this. And Mark went out because I specifically said that I forgoed my scholarship to University of Michigan at the time, to work on this. And he said, I really think you need to go back to school. And I am very grateful to Mark Cuban because he planted a seed in me where I knew I was always going to keep learning. I was always going to be a student. I mean, at that point, I had taught myself how to code. I taught myself how to do PR, and I taught myself how to do basically everything when it comes to startups. And obviously, with the community of support in everywhere I went, but it was just me really
Yeah.
for a long time. And he planted that seed in me back in 2018, making me realize that maybe school would be good for me. And so fast forward, COVID hits in spring of 2020. I was on the verge of closing a round of funding. So close. Like this would have
Angel,
been
this is
like
beyond angel investing, so VC stage.
easy.
Okay.
Yeah. I was on the verge of securing several $1 million of funding.
That would
And
have been a good investment.
yeah,
Yeah. Basically, I would,
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. I
when
appreciate
Disha
that.
is involved, like when you went to Yale, I wanted to buy stock in Yale. And then in May, when I got that, I was like, you know what? I might want to sell my stock right now. Like
Yeah.
yeah, you bring excellence into your spaces. Such a beautiful thing. You got it,
But
sister.
yeah, I mean, COVID hit and then everything kind of fell apart. And a lot of actually Savy's customers were small businesses. So when they couldn't pay their bills, they couldn't pay us, right? And so started kind of hemorrhaging money. I had to let everyone in my team go. Like I had engineers and people working for me at that point. I let everyone go and I just decided, you know what? I need more stability in my life. Also, there's a lot broken with Silicon Valley. I would go into VC offices that were glamorous and glitzy, and then right outside the front doors are these tents with homeless people that are camping out there for the night. And I just like it ate away at me. I couldn't just stop. I couldn't stop. I couldn't ignore it for any longer, especially as the pandemic hit. And so I decided to enroll in online classes at Foothill. And that's when I started back on my education and academic journey.
So I'm going to say this. When I grow up, I want to have your courage and your strength. So amazing. I kind
I
of
had
want
a
to give
lot of people helping me. I had a lot
beautiful.
of people that had my back and I had a safety net. And that is so important because a lot of people don't have that. And I'm privileged in that way.
Yeah, I call this. I have a name for this. I call it earned privilege. It's the idea that we have privilege and how lucky we are, and that we're humble in the face of those that don't, and then we work as hard as we can within the constraints of our life to earn the gifts that we're given. And I have so many. I very much enjoyed over the time that I've gotten to know you, hearing you speak about your family and about the love that you want to bring in. Later today, I hope that we talk a little bit about true justice, because that's something that spoke very deeply to my soul. Before we dive deeper, I would love to give you a chance. I'm not certain that all of my Foothill students will know what the business model of Savy was, what the history of it was, and I think it would be valuable for them just to hear the idea that you had and how it came, so that they don't have
Sure.
to go search it up online. They can just hear it from your
Yeah,
voice, right?
yeah. So it actually started my junior year of high school. That summer, I went to a program out in MIT called MIT Launch, and that was the first kind of instance of me being exposed to startups or entrepreneurship. Back then, my high school didn't even have like a startup sort of class or really a business class. I don't think. And so this is like my first taste of it. I enjoyed it. It was intellectually rather exciting and fulfilling, and that like I had this project that I was working on with a bunch of people, and we were all kind of working well together and like trying to achieve a similar one goal. And so that was my first exposure to startups. I had that's when I created my first startup called Tackboard. And that lasted for a while, probably through 2016, 2017, maybe. Um, and I worked with some folks here in Columbus, Ohio. There's a kind of VC, but also like government affiliated firm called Rev One Ventures in Columbus, Ohio, that I got co-working space at. I got some really incredible mentors at, and they kind of helped me refine the idea, refine the value proposition, refine the like bigger kind of concept of like data and pricing data around it. So Savy eventually it became a tool for small businesses to price their products better. So we collected a lot of willingness to pay data as well as consumer data for these small businesses and sent it back to them in actionable kind of decision-oriented insights. At least that was the vision.
And
And
willingness to pay means that what is a customer willing to pay per certain item? So basically, you're
exactly,
improving, you're acting as a broker to help willing buyers connect with willing sellers,
exactly,
and having a mechanism by which the sellers can collect better information about pricing.
exactly. That's
I
exactly
did my
right.
research, by the way.
That's exactly right. And and it's so funny because it started off as something for small businesses, and then when I started talking to VCs, they were like, "Well, why don't you sell to giant corporations?" And I'm like, "But they already have this data. Like they already have all this. Why do they need a leg up in this environment? I want to help small businesses compete against the Amazons of the world." And they kept pushing, and I quickly realized like you think when you start a company that you, especially like when you're trying to start the next big startup, right? That you have full agency over your product and over like the decisions of your company. But really, when you start getting investment, you don't have that agency anymore. It's all at the whims of VCs and the people who are giving you the money, right? And I came to that realization really quite slowly. It took a while for like my dream of Savvy to kind of get eroded, especially with the ethos of Silicon Valley. I just after a certain point, especially after the pandemic, I just couldn't do it any longer. I just couldn't. I couldn't ignore the inequalities inherent to that system and to that world.
One of the things that I just have been so touched with over the years is your ability to be honest with yourself, and your ability to dream of a different future. I don't want to give up on the current generation, but I have thought to myself that great changes are going to come from youth, um, because in the imaginations of youth lies the future. And I will always count me in the group of people who will do everything that I can to nurture that sense of, I don't want to call it injustice. No, no, no. Nurture the sense of we can do better than wealth extraction. We can do better than wealth supremacy.
And
Um,
look, like I don't think all VCs are bad. Like clearly, I loved Mark Cuban and he gave me phenomenal advice. He gave me very good advice. My brother worked as a VC, right? Like it's not it's just that the system really needs to change in order for it to help more people and actually be beneficial to more people
yeah.
rather than a system of extraction.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
cannot wait. Maybe later today, as we go deeper into this, I'm hoping that we can catch your story. But I think there's some really good discussion for one of my target populations for this interview is local Foothill students who are trying to find themselves in their education and looking for inspiration. And I think your voice will be so powerful. Other community college students there, and I think this discussion of what does it mean to imagine a different world? What does it mean to reimagine the social contracts that we make? I think is really powerful. I'm wondering if we can. I don't want to stop it, but I also want to make sure to capture the
the
kind of
other
the
stuff too.
yeah, right, and
Yeah,
kind of work towards this
for
as we
sure.
continue the dialogue. So thank you for sharing that story. So, okay, so you start in, was it spring 2020, or
Spring
spring
2020.
2020?
I took a class with Scott Langford. I remember still.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. English 1CH. I remember. And it was so funny because like it was a English class, but it was also his specialty is like climate change and climate justice. And that kind of also planted a seed in me, right? Like
Yeah.
I ended up going down that route of environmental engineering and also recognizing that climate change it is a social justice problem. It's the people who have contributed the least to the problem that um, are going to be that are facing the worst impacts right now. So,
If I was completely honest, this is the reason that I got into teaching when I was, because I thought to myself, if climate change was one of them, what I used to call, when I was a young kid, many of my friends were black and brown. I didn't know
mhm.
that at the time. It wasn't like I just, they were my friends. And then later we learned that I was white and they were black and somehow that caused problems, right?
Yeah,
So I was thinking about, the higher I got in math, the more I was confused by why all the black and brown kids started to disappear.
yeah.
And by the time I was in my PhD, we had like two dark skinned kids, right? And like, so, and I thought like, okay, so climate change, racial injustice, economic insecurity. I launched my graduate degree in 2008, right after the financial, like, and I was watching that whole thing. And I thought to myself, if these come from policies, all the politicians, all the engineers, all the managers, all the lawyers, all the doctors, these all come out of college. Okay,
Mm.
so if and then I was very much aware of Jane Mayer's story in Dark Money,
Mm.
and this goes into the history of the Federalist Society and the mechanism of using financial incentives to position people in positions of power. And
Mm.
if you really think about what they're doing is they're capturing young people before they have come to full consciousness and embedding them in a little bubble where it makes them really easy to be what you might call agents of maintaining wealth supremacy.
Yeah.
And I realized that we, as ordinary people, could do really, really well to think about what liberatory educational policies might do for the next generation if we can help them think. And so at 24, when I was thinking, I had been going through entrepreneurship classes and starting thinking about, decamillionaire, centimillionaire,
Yeah.
etc. And eventually I realized, like, actually, I would rather spend my time embedding myself in education so that I can give the majority of what you might call spiritual and intellectual labor of my professional career to the next generation of students. I think this is one of the reasons why you've had such a big impact on me, because you brought out in our dialogues a dream that I had when I was 24, which
Oh,
is the idea that I'm going to give decades of my life working much harder than if I wanted to be very wealthy financially,
yeah.
with much less support, in the hopes of inspiring and supporting future dreamers to work on hard problems. And I'm not talking about the problem of like, how do you get people to click on ads?
Yeah. No, that's not a hard problem. That's just a dumb problem.
Yeah, I'm talking about like, how do you transform the fundamental, policies in our nation, and do things that address the existential crisis, right? And so I just really love that. And so I thank you for that. I wonder if we can talk a little bit about what your experience at Foothill College was like before you transferred, right?
Yeah.
What was yeah, so kind of just speak about that. What was, from the time you met Scott Langford and you kind of had that seed to how you worked through the college?
I mean, oh gosh. I mean, a lot of my initial, probably first year was online because of the pandemic. And it was only when I really got to campus where I was like, I get why this place is so special. This place is an incredible place. I mean, obviously, while I was online, I would meet with my professors over Zoom and everything, and like I would always go to office hours. I was always that kid, but Foothill College is a gem. It's a true gem in the whole education system. And even after going to Yale, I still look back at my time at Foothill really, really fondly because it gave me not only the space to explore all of the crazy things that I was interested in, and also gave me the space to take a million and one classes without breaking the bank. It also gave me the fundamentals that allowed me to succeed and do so well at Yale. So, I mean, linear algebra, differential equations, physics, it's all the same everywhere. And the fact that those classes are weed out classes at places like Yale and places like
Yeah.
any UCs is just so sad to me because it cuts a STEM education or academic career short if you fail one of those classes. Like a failure in one of those classes is hard to recover from. It's hard to get your GPA back up once you've not done well in a class. And the fact that Foothill gives you the space to explore and also take all of these classes under professors that really, really, really care about you, um, is just an experience I'm extremely grateful for. Um, yeah, especially after ending up at a place like Yale.
Yeah, I wonder if I can. So I have. I love that you named the weed out culture. I have in my academic work. I call myself a research educator.
Mm.
One of the ways that I protect myself against gaslighting is I do a lot of intellectual work to make sure that the education decisions and the policies that I create as an instructor are backed up by the highest, the research-based evidence that is produced with the highest levels of excellence that we have as humanities and in human beings. And the
Mhm.
particular problem that you're mentioning right now reminds me of the book Talking About Leaving Revisited, and
Mm.
the idea that in that book, I can always show it, um, just so that, this is one of the ways that I protect, because often when I get into this discussion, I get people trying to tell me um, that the sky is orange, and I just don't agree with that statement. So in Talking About Leaving Revisited, they say this exact thing that you've just said.
Mhm.
So this is the book. It's a very good one. I always encourage folks who are thinking about education
Yeah,
to read
I'll send this to
chapters.
Ethan for sure.
Yeah, it's this is about STEM and kind of loss. So the what this book shows, it's the second in a series, is that out of a standard STEM degree, if 100 students start, only 40 end with a degree in 6 years.
That's
And
wrong. That's like
it's
really
injustice.
wrong.
Yeah, and I actually, when I was a graduate student thinking about what career I wanted to do, I find this to actually, I think this caps our national GDP. Now, it's in the interest of monopolists, because if you can weed more people out, it's easier to maintain the monopoly, no competition. So there's some negative incentives from the standpoint of the people who control policies makers with dark money,
Yeah.
not to change this. But from the standpoint of our youth, it's really, really harmful, because it's almost in some sense worse than a physical death. If it was a physical death, you could see the harm and you could name it. But the death
Yeah.
of the spirit, the death of a dream, the death happens over a lot longer time, and it shows up in 30s and 40s and 50s, where students are working in spaces that they don't necessarily want to be in because they couldn't get through those classes, right? And so I love that you name that out loud, and that you recognize that. Um,
Mhm.
I love also that I would say that you are our dream. Foothill College exists for students like you, and I hope 100%. I love the statement that community colleges educate the top 100%. So they're democratic spaces that allow people in. And I wonder if I can share a text that you sent me.
For sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me see if I can get it I think I actually got a copy, and I kind of want to just read it to you, and
Yeah.
if you're willing, and then just give you a chance to respond, because this one it made me feel very happy for you. So I think it was on May 22nd,
Yeah.
and this text came along with two amazing photos that made me smile. Okay, so I wanted to know the name of this amazing.
Oh, that's Handsome Dan. That's
Is that it?
Yale's mascot.
Oh,
Yeah,
very
the
cool.
bulldog.
Okay, and
Yeah,
then.
he's like a descendant of many dogs.
So you got a
Yeah.
picture with, or I guess I should say, Handsome Dan got a picture with you, which
Oh
is
yeah,
very
he did.
exciting. And then what about this one? What's this picture of, and where did it come from?
Yeah, I mean it's on Yale's Instagram, which you can see there, but I got to walk across stage, one of the two people from my residential college, because of how well I did at Yale. Um,
Did you
yeah.
have neck pain from the amount of swagger you had on your where you had to like massage your neck?
No, but that is a good point. I
Yeah.
did have a lot of stuff around my neck.
Yeah, so this on May 22nd, I got this. Hey Jeff, I hope you've been well. I wanted to let you know I graduated this past Monday, which I guess was probably some Monday close to May 22nd, 2025.
Mhm.
I was really blessed. I wanted to thank you for the strategies and life lessons you taught me at my time at Foothill. I will always say, Disha, you are the boss and I am your servant. So,
That is a lie. You're the one who changed my life, Jeff.
well, it's mutual. This is what we call a two-way street. Um, this was really fun. I ended my time at Yale as a Phi Beta Kappa and Tau Beta Pi honor scholar, receiving distinction in my major and summa cum laude Latin honors. Do you want to say a little bit? I always say that any honor society, what they do is they put the Greek letters on the wall and throw darts at them. So gamma, sigma, alpha, beta. Do you want to say a little bit
Uh,
about those and how you got involved with them?
yeah, I mean, so it's according to Google, it is the most prestigious academic honor society in the United States, founded in 1776 at the College of William and Mary. Celebrates excellence in liberal arts and sciences, including the top undergraduate students who have demonstrated exceptional achievement in these fields.
Did you search for them or did they search for you?
No, you get it essentially if you have a certain GPA.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so awesome. And then I love this. For my major in environmental engineering, I was one of two students chosen for the YSEA award and also awarded the D. Allen Bromley Prize in Environmental Engineering at commencement. I wanted to know when I got this, are these Yale specific?
Yeah, so YSCA, it's uh, Yale Science and Engineering Association. So every year, during the seniors' whole process, they nominate, like some of my professors probably nominated me for this distinction award.
Okay, so you're saying that the professors at Yale were paying attention and realized the same thing I did, which is
Yeah,
that,
I
yeah,
guess so.
beautiful,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. Congratulations on all that. I love
Thank
this one
you.
as well. I was also chosen to be a student marshal for my residential college at commencement, an honor awarded to the student with the highest GPA in their college. You want to say a little bit about that?
Let's just say I ended my time at Yale with a 4.0. At Foothill, I ended my time with a 3.97. So, and I can talk more to that.
Yes, please do. We can put this on pause. I want to, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, there were some hard classes at Foothill. There were some hard classes at Foothill. Cascarano's classes, oof. I thought I wanted to be a physics major before I took his classes, and I took his class, and I was like, I don't know anything.
We
I
love you,
can't.
Frank. We love you, Frank.
Yeah, love you, Frank. Literally, truly one of the best professors, but his classes are hard.
Yeah, those
And
exams were
Yam and I took his Physics 4C class together,
good.
and like we would study our butts off for those exams.
Was that spring?
And that was spring, I
Yeah.
think. I'm pretty sure it was spring, yes. And yeah, I remember I would be in his every office
Good.
hours, like till late. And it's really funny because so like physics 4A and 4B, like you use the right hand rule and everything. And I am terrible at directions, like at like sense of direction. It is like I don't know what it is about me, but like if you tell me to get from point A to point B, I can't do it. I'm not very good at like navigating. And like a lot of right hand rule and a lot of physics 4A depended on having like a pretty good sense of like internal direction and like, all of that. So it's also really funny because my name in Hindi, Disha, means direction. So I remember one of the
Very
office
cute.
hours chats that we had, and I was like, Professor Cascarano, I like my this is like my namesake, and I'm like bad at
What was his response? Did he give you
it.
some wisdom? Did he give you some?
He just chuckled.
Ow, that kind of hurts. um,
I know, but no, I mean he was a letter writer for me and all of that. Like he saw me. I think the only B plus that I got at Foothill was in his class.
oh, and B pluses are hard because they're like a double hit. What is it, like a 3.3 or something like that?
Something like that,
Oh,
something like
brutal.
that. Like that's why I ended up with a 3.97
Oh.
and even all of the classes that I took didn't make up for it.
So you're telling me that Frank is special?
Frank is special. His his classes are hard. His
Yeah.
classes are hard.
Well, this is
Yeah.
so. I'm so glad you said this because one of the things that in my career as an educator, I think a lot about. I call them system navigation and system transformation. I actually have a whole model for this that I finally got around to making a diagram for recently.
Mm.
Where would this be? I think this is the second book. Um, so this would be this one, book one. Um, let's do two of them actually. Let's do this one. I don't think that I had shown this to you because I hadn't. It was in my mind, but it wasn't physical yet.
Mm.
Um, and this can be useful to frame the dialogue and to kind of
Mhm.
share a little bit about one of the many things that I was inspired by when working with you. So, um, as an educator, I think a lot about the idea that that I want to base my decisions on theories of learning.
Mhm.
And so I actually like to extend, this is my own version of what is it? The Blackfoot hierarchy, which in popular culture is also known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
Maslow took some of those ideas from an indigenous culture, which,
Really? I didn't know
yeah,
that.
it's called Blackfoot's
Wow.
hierarchy. So, um, the thing that I love to say with my students, I have this whole philosophy that one of the best gifts I can give my students is the reminder that you are brilliant just the way you are, and really helping you uh, take autonomy back from your education, taking the focus off of the judgment of the institution and back on to reminding you that brilliance is a muscle that can be developed and that you have everything that you need. And then I love the idea of reminding students. I have in my class, I probably you remember the rule: health comes first. So I
Yeah.
don't like the idea that we tell students that are homeless, too bad you don't have a home, please finish my exam.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's ridiculous.
yeah, and so the whole thing that I like to say is that self actualization is very powerful. The idea that we can have a mental image of the world we want to create and then
Hmm.
realize that world in reality through hard work, strategic navigation, and things like this. But I like to say that that's only half of the puzzle.
Hmm.
So I like to say this is called system navigation for an autonomous individual. And I love to invite my students to move beyond what I call self actualization into self transcendence. This is the idea from, what is the name of that book? Uh, I'm forgetting the name of the book, but the idea that we're not just trying to realize our goals, that we actually situate our goals within a larger context, within a context that gives back to people. So that we actually give more than we take. And so, but one of the things that I love to say on that is that that is a process, and that process requires, in an education system, it requires the ability to get through the gates. And there are all these policies and kind of what I call harms embedded in our standard letter grading systems that are spiritual and that I consider to be a spiritual and intellectual attack on our students. Um, so I have a whole thing that I do in my classes, and that for you would have showed up as conquering college. right?
Yeah.
This idea that I think, I don't know if I had my, so what's really fun is every day I try to suck a little bit less. So compared to when met me, I hope I'm a little bit better. I'm not sure
Oh
if
my
that's true,
goodness.
but I
Yeah.
don't know if I showed you this when we were working together because I don't think I had it yet. So
Mm.
let's see, strategic deep learning. I have now gone back. Hilda Fernandez, one of my sisters, she gave me a one-word critique. She's like, turn the word conquer into the word transform, and I was like,
Mm.
damn, Hilda, you just took me to school.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, so transform college, get paid to learn, from the classroom to the bank. So
Mhm.
how can a student learn to thrive in school in spite of the harms of the letter grading system? That's one level of oppression. Another level of oppression has to do with the way we fund school and the attack on students through what I call the student debt complex.
Yeah.
Another level of oppression has to do with the idea of competitive job markets in a world of artificial scarcity. And these three levels of oppression, I like to say, are higher and higher barriers that block students. And this together I call system navigation. Over
Mm.
here I call this system transformation, which is how do you, and what's fun about it is that even today, just like when I met you in the classroom, I was so inspired by and touched by what I would call your critical consciousness and your courage and strength in naming out loud things that you saw with your own eyes that you didn't like,
Mhm.
and your ability to say, I am not going to give my brilliance to recreating that world. I'm
Yeah.
actually going to dream of a different world.
Yeah.
But the thing that I love to say is, in order for that world to happen, you said this when we were working. I have to get through the system as it exists today, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
wonder if you could speak a little bit about some of the experiences that we had together in the work that you did, because I remember we spent many hours in deep dialogue in the curriculum that I would call Conquering College or Transform College, and what that meant to you and how you did it, and kind of what changes you made accordingly. And we'll kind of level up later in the dialogue. I'd love to level up to the scholarship stuff and some of those stories, but I'd love to just start with this idea of um, some of the feelings that you had trying to get grades in classes, and then some
Yeah,
of the
for sure.
work that we did when we were working together to empower you to kind of protect yourself against those perceived threats.
Yeah. I think I learned about like the whole textbook making process through your class, right? And I started employing that in my physics classes. I ended up getting an A in Cascarano's last, class that I took with him. And I was like, this is it. This is how you do well. And I took that and I ran and I did exactly that at Yale. So I can pull up so at Yale, the major specific classes, those professors want you to do well. They aren't weed out classes when you get to the major specific classes. And all of the professors, yeah, they had exams, they had timed exams, but they all let you bring a cheat sheet, right? Some professors let you bring in four sides of paper, like 4 pages of paper. You can fit a lot of information in 4 pages of
I
paper.
love it.
Some professors didn't care how large the paper was, as long as it was 2 sheets of paper. Like there were some classes where I walked into class with like a giant poster board of my like tiny ass notes. And the professor would just chuckle because they know at that point you're gonna do well on the exam, and I probably overdid it. I probably was like, just crazy about this, but that's how I was able to get A's in literally all of my classes. This is one example from one of my favorite classes at Yale.
What was the name of that class that spoke to your
Air
heart?
pollution control. It was taught by Drew Gentner, phenomenal professor. Let me see if I can pull it up. This is what my cheat sheet looked like. I had everything from constants, units and constants, conversions, and then diagrams that we had written out in class, specifics about certain pollutants, just everything. I wrote everything out. Even some of like the PSAT problems that, we had that I thought were tricky, I would write out the basic problem solving strategy that we used in those problems. And yeah, so
Do you
like
want to
this is
show? Do you want to show? Because
yeah.
I'm thinking what you're saying is that this is so basically what would happen is you would be making your own textbooks. Do you want to talk a little bit about one of the things that's really hard for me is when I first meet my students in my classes, I get this thing, hey, I thought this was supposed to be a math class and you're asking me to do all this meta learning stuff and this is a
And
waste of
all
my
this extra work.
right.
Yeah.
And you want
I
to talk
mean, right from the beginning of the semester, I would go through my notes after class and sometimes it wouldn't be after every class. Sometimes I would get behind, but I would write down the things that were important that we learned in that class, things that were relevant in the readings and like also tied to what we learned during class. And that's how I was able to have these detailed cheat sheets.
do you
Um,
want to show one of those portfolios, like maybe the one associated? You can say if it's not.
let's see. I don't know if I can find it in time, but let me
Do you know
see.
the one I remember?
I had my like so I switched from being, pencil and paper to something like this because I was like, it is so easy
Yep.
to copy from my class notes to this cheat sheet. So this is for example, this is like all of my lecture notes for this class.
So you want to talk a little bit about your workflow? So you would go into class, your professor was lecturing,
Mhm.
and what would you do?
I would take detailed notes like this. This is like the introductory class, and I you can see that I was taking a lot of notes.
Yeah.
Probably none of this was on the exam, but I was interested.
Yeah.
I loved this material. And so I was like, I took pretty detailed notes in class and made sure to write down every single like formula and details of like why that formula worked, the background behind it, and then also any problems we did in class, highlight things that like I had questions about. I don't know if we'll find something like that. So yeah, I mean it
So that was
so
what we call maybe the first draft.
this is the first draft, yeah. And then throughout so this is and then I would have drafts of these cheat sheets. Like this was like a
Oh,
pretty
so you
close.
you built it throughout the term basically. You would go to your first draft and then you would look at it afterwards and extract kind of your meaning from that and create it
Yeah.
as the term goes on.
Yeah, exactly. And I would we would have problem sets, right? So each of these I would extract stuff from here. We would have reading notes, we would have yeah, it was an iterative process. It wasn't just like one and done, I wrote this down and that's it. Because that's not how you learn.
I love it. I love it. And I love, so one thing I'll highlight is this, I call this a learning portfolio.
Yeah.
And I would love to, if you would give some guidance to students. So when we started, I think we started in room 5614. This is the first time I've ever done two interviews back to back with two group members who were in the same group.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's very funny.
um, so we met in Math 2B, and I remember
Mhm.
you, Yam, Ron Painter, and Joyce.
Yes.
And I remember that quarter I watched what I would call some pretty amazing transformations that I saw in your work.
Yeah.
And I would love, and then the next quarter, I remember the next quarter is when you taught me to use Notion.
Yeah. 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 Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing this for literally every single one of my classes. Like this was, environmental engineering 448 is a hard class. Like there's some hard math in here. And every time I would walk in and I wouldn't just, write things out. Sometimes it was, like written content from my P sets that I just copied on over or like took notes on and copied on over. But like if you were to ask me to do some of this math right now, it'd be like, I need a minute. It's been a while and I need a minute, but like I know I could do it.
Yep.
This takes time.
I call this the external brain. One of my students introduced me to Tiago Forte's book.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that he charges like $2,000 for classes. It's just, go rent his book at a library and you can teach yourself everything you need to
Exactly.
know. But
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, this is what I did all throughout my time at Yale and it served me well. It definitely served me well. And I think it's also because again, those professors wanted you to succeed. Once you got to those major classes, they were like, okay, these are the people that have survived differential equations and survived learning linear algebra in like a giant room of 300 people. They should be able to get through this unscathed. And why can't all of college be like that? Why do you have to why can't you get through differential equations and linear algebra unscathed? I did because I went through Foothill first and I got all those prereqs taken care of. But it was like I had a cheat code for the system, right? Like I know transferring to Yale from a community college sounds impressive, but like I feel like I had it easier than some of my classmates.
Less psychologically harmful.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. Because it turns out that if you get people whose financial incentives are aligned with great education, who are professional educators and are very thoughtful about what they do in introductory classes, the type of work they can do with students is transformational for the rest of that student's career, right? Like it, and the idea of a 500 person class is dehumanizing not only for the students but also for the teachers. It's not fair.
Yeah. It's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not okay. Like it's just like how do you actually learn in a place like that unless like you're doing a lot of work outside of class. And a lot of students don't know that that work needs to be done. Otherwise, they're going to fail the final or fail the midterm.
Yeah, and
Right.
this is my point with Transform College, or what I'm call Conquering College, making transparent what is often hidden. So Joe Feldman in his book Grading for Equity calls this lifting the veil.
Mm-hmm.
So and to me the most important, I remember a dialogue with you certainly, that the most important part of the content is not what is written, it's what you create, the neural networks that you create in your own brain, where you're painstakingly, or what you might call high level of details to every piece of the class, and you're creating meaning from those pieces by integrating that new knowledge into an existing framework. And
Yeah.
that's why those lecture rewrites, I say, are so important. And it's the teacher can't even do it for you, you have to do that for yourself, right?
There were so many times where I walked out of a lecture and I was like, yeah, that all makes sense. 2 hours later, I'm reviewing my notes and I'm like, how did we go from here to here?
Yep.
That makes no sense. And how did we get from this to this? Like, and you have to go to office hours or you have to ask your classmates, right? Like, did I miss something or does this not make sense? And there were often times, especially when we were working on like P sets and we were referring back to examples that we did in class, that, hey, the example was actually wrong. We were flying through that material in class and there was something wrong that was written down. There were so many times when that happened. And like if you don't catch that early on, then your entire like foundation is shot.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about the foundation is when you have that foundation, you can build on top of that. And I wonder if you would be willing to speak a little bit about. I don't know about you. I had major test anxiety. I remember
Oh yeah.
I took a
Yeah.
3 hour
Yeah.
exam that if I failed it, I would be homeless.
I mean, it wasn't like I was scared of being homeless necessarily, but like all throughout high school, I was so anxious about failing my tests. And there were some times where I just wouldn't sleep all
Yeah,
night
for
and I
sure.
would study all night, even though I didn't have to. I didn't have to do that, but I did. And then I go to my test in the morning and everything's blank. I can't remember anything. And I get a D on that test.
Yeah.
And it's just like so demoralizing because you put in so much work into preparing for these things that last for like an hour, testing, testing you under really high pressure conditions, which is not at all what happens in real life. That's not what happens in your job. You it There is no equivalent like kind of scenario unless you're working some like insane FBI high pressure, gig or something.
But you still have a team of people around you that want you to be successful,
Exactly.
right? Like they're mutually,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yes, I still have a lot of test anxiety as I prepare for like PhD stuff in the future. I'm scared of taking the GRE. Are you
You're gonna do
kidding?
great. You're gonna do great,
Uh-huh.
sister. You got this. I think we've shared the "Getting What You Came For: A Smart Student's Guide for Earning a Master's or PhD." Did we talk
I
about
think
that?
I don't know.
I mean, I'll do it right here live today. There's a great book. It's a little bit out of date. What You Came For: A Smart Student. It's not going to give you GRE stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Guide. But in this, one of my students once said, Jeff, they're talking about having to compete for computer time in the computer room on campus, and I'm like, yeah, it was written in the 1990s, so the computation, the technology is not accurate, but the framework for navigating graduate education can be quite helpful. So this guy was I think he was an art PhD at Stanford,
Oh,
and
very
he
cool.
might have been a first generation, and he realized that so many of the rules of graduate navigation are hidden,
Hmm.
and he wished they wouldn't be. So after he finished his PhD at Stanford, he wrote a book proposal to travel the nation for like 300 interviews or 400 interviews, and then he compiled a list of kind of guidance that allows, it's the same idea that I think about in Transform College, where you're lifting the veil so that students can see behind the curtains, and learn what questions to ask and what the processes are and what the goals are. So I would say, if you're thinking about a PhD, sister, I would love to. I used to buy these for my students, and then I had kids, and I was like, I want to stay married, so I better like put the money into my kids' college account.
Yeah, I'll take a look at this. This is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I wonder if you can speak a little bit about like how the process of really systematizing and writing your own textbooks, what that did for your confidence in exams, and
I
how
mean, I
you
was
use
still
that.
always a nervous wreck. That's just who I am. Yeah, you could ask my professors at Yale. I mean, I'm sure Cascarano would say same thing. I would always come 200% prepared and walk out feeling like, wow, I got a C on that test. Which is not true. I never got a C on a test because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to have the GPA that I did. But I don't know. I don't know how to get over something like that. Maybe you have advice for that,
What?
but
So
it
what?
is,
What? Yeah. No, go sorry.
yeah, it is. It's just like regardless the amount of like preparation that I put into things, I think the past trauma of like doing badly on tests that I really worked hard for in high school, it hasn't gone away.
Yeah, I call this a psychological cost for the trauma of harmful education policies. So if you ask me, what I think we should do is actually change our relationships to letter grades. I think I can name scientific research that says letter grades are to student learning what cigarettes are to human health. That research has been around for the last 100 years, and I just really appreciate that which means that we as a society have known that letter grades do
Are
this to
bad.
students, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fix to this is a policy fix. Like I actually want the state of California to change section 55002 and 55023 of California Title V Ed Code, so that we are not required to assign grades. Another
Mm.
thing that I want, another policy change, don't let a class end until the student says I'm done. So, like, if a student needs extra time, no problem, just give them extra time.
That was one of the things that I liked about Cascarano. He gave you as much time as you needed, and after like 3 hours of staying in the test room, he might be like, "Okay, folks, time to wrap it up." But he
Yeah.
at least gave you those extra 3 hours. And for students that had you know, I was lucky and I didn't have any classes or exams after his. But I know Yam, for example, like one of the exams, he was like, "Yeah, I just couldn't get through it. I had another exam that I had to go to." And I'm just like, that sucks. That sucks so much because like I would say Yam is a better student than me. He's smarter than me in many of the math and physics ways. And yeah, and I was just like, that's just not fair. That's not fair at all.
Yeah, and there's so many. So something that I saw when we were working together, which I really appreciated, um, we were in deep dialogue about mechanisms by which we could nurture, uh, hopefully, your sense of agency. That's what I always think about. That the work that I do is healing work
Hmm.
to reconnect you, and something that I think I remember spending a lot of time with this on Yam, and I think we were in dialogue about that is, in an absence of confidence, a preponderance of effort can be really helpful. So the lecture rewrite process, generating the questions, going into office hours, forcing the teachers to answer those office hours,
Yeah.
really coming so that the
Be the most annoying kid in class? Yeah, for
yes,
sure.
yeah, I was going to say that means you're making the teacher earn the tuition.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, I love it. So if you were to give some guidance, something that I struggle with is, because I'm balding and my hair is white here, and I'm kind of, I don't want to call it over the hill. Um, but let's be clear, like, out of the two of us, I think you're way cooler. What advice would you have for future students in my class who are maybe confused by, or overwhelmed by, or thinking this is a waste of my time? I'm supposed to be learning math. Why am I doing all this meta learning stuff? From your perspective, what would you say? What response would you give as you have dived into the idea of really treating meta learning as something that is important for you?
Yeah.
What would you say back to them? What advice or guidance would you have for future generations of
Well,
students?
first, I would ask what their goals are. Are their goals to just kind of coast through community college and then go from there? Or do they want to succeed? And I'm almost positive that they want to succeed and they want to transfer to a UC, which Foothill has incredible transfer rates to, or even an Ivy. And if that's what their goal is, they need to talk to you. They need to talk to you and understand that, like, the work that you have invested in creating these systems is really valuable and it will change your life if you put the work into it.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I would love to build on top of, and I want to be conscientious, but
Well,
so,
I have plenty of time. Don't worry about
okay, so
it.
something that I really enjoyed, one of my favorite things in life, aside from being in dialogue with students about their dreams and their family, is getting students money. I take like a deep pride of mine. It makes me sick that that we have transferred the liability of education onto debt funded uh, uh, loans that everybody but the richest people in society will be paying off for the rest of life. I recognize that there's a financial interest for employers. Employees that graduate in massive debt can be paid less because they are insecure.
Yeah.
I recognize, in fact, I remember, I call anyone that changes my life a teacher. So, Teacher Disha, I remember you gave me a homework assignment to read The Big Myth by Naomi. I forget her last name right now. Do you remember her last name, how to pronounce it?
I don't. I
Yeah.
don't.
So when we were working together, The Big Myth. And in this, the reason that I highlight this is that that book tells the story of the anti-democratic corporate forces that helped fund Ronald Reagan.
Oh.
And the reason that's really interesting is that, formally speaking, higher education, let's say in California, was supposed to be free. And it was the Reagan Revolution, funded by the ideas behind these folks. There was a recent one, I think I sent this to you actually. I forget this guy's name. He shows up on the Current Affairs YouTube channel. And what he documents is the attack on. So let me see if I can get the actual. This one was really nicely done. This guy right here, David Sirota. The title of this one was called "How the Rich Legalized Corruption." And Master Plan. And what's really cool about this is that this book is a very nice, what you might call, it's like wine and cheese, because it's a side story behind that, right? And I say that because what these books do is they document the history of why it's so hard for students to afford school. I tell the story quickly. It turns out schools, publicly financed schools, are taxes. So if you're a billionaire or you're a very wealthy person and you have the idea you want to maximize wealth, there are kind of two ways to maximize wealth: increase revenues, decrease expenses. So what you do is you pay for the candidacies of politicians. When that happens, the politicians are in your pocket. You have them decrease taxes. When taxes go down, the amount of money for schools go down. When the amount of money for schools go down, Jeff's baldness and heart pressure adverse affected because more students per teacher because there's less teachers. And then on the student side, it ends up that tuition goes up. So I tell this story because something that I really enjoyed working with you was what I call get paid to learn. And I wonder if you're willing to talk a little bit about, I think you would have done this otherwise. I do hope that the hours we spent in dialogue were helpful for you. And I wanted you to be able to tell that story a little bit when you were, because I met you while you were applying to Yale. And I remember you being very open to the dialogues about how we could get you funding, how we could help you avoid debt, how we could get you into highly competitive spaces. So I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about, as we were talking about that in Math 2B and Engineering 11, what you heard, what came up for you, and then how you leveraged those dialogues to do things that you cared about.
So I got kind of lucky because I was a non-traditional student. The fact that I was essentially working 2 internships, 2 jobs, making probably cumulatively maybe $25,000 per year, maybe 30, with those internships. I actually it was probably closer to like $20,000 per year. That was the income that Yale looked at when deciding to give me financial aid. And I know that's not the same for just a traditional student that is coming out of high school and deciding to, go to college. Like that's just I was very lucky in the amount of aid that Yale provided me. They essentially gave me a stipend to go study there. So not only covered my full tuition, they gave me a stipend to live and eat, and they did a lot. But a lot of that initially came from, hey, I have this funding source. I have, I'm working 2 jobs, right? So I was able to like build up that those kind of financial receipts on my end, and Yale kind of followed up and gave me the money to learn at their institution. What I would say in terms of like getting internships and getting research positions, I made the wise choice of making sure to do internships and research that followed into essentially what I'm doing today, right? So I started at USRA NASA while I was at Foothill. I started as an intern. My internship kept getting re-upped, and eventually became a part-time employee while I was in my last semester at Foothill. Was a part-time employee working 20 to 40 hours a week at Yale, and then now I'm fully employed at NASA. And I never had the struggle of like going out and looking for a job after I found that first internship. I stuck with it. And I know that's not easy to do, and that's like my story is unique, but there are two other Foothill students that started off as interns at US Area NASA and now are working as full-time employees. So it's not impossible. It's definitely doable. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, for sure. I love, I mean, you're basically giving strategies. I think this is so important that we don't wait until after graduation to start thinking about the interconnections. In fact, I love to say that the sooner the sooner the student starts to write the story of their future and integrate the skills that they want to build with concrete work experiences that are interrelated to the curriculum that they're studying, the more value and meaning come from the institution. I love to say that the student makes the school doesn't make the student, and I think that's what you're saying here, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
The story that I was thinking, I have two stories that stick
Oh
out
yeah.
in my mind.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, story number one, I remember, I really love it when students uh, exert autonomy. And I remember getting in a deep conversation with you. I have an aversion to elite spaces for myself. I never impose my judgments on my students. In fact, I say, don't trust me. I want you to apply active distrust like a journalist. So I'm going to share
Mhm.
ideas with you, and then there's going to be a bunch of work you have to do to kind of explore those ideas. And my
Mhm.
point in sharing the ideas is not to say these are the right ideas for you. The point of sharing the ideas is to plant a seed that you then can cultivate and shape and grow into something that matters to you. And I remember we were in deep conversation about some of the ideas that I shared about eliteness and how I like to avoid those spaces. And you had said, Jeff, I really want to try for Yale, but I don't know how much I should do to do research on the particular program. You remember this dialogue?
Vaguely, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and what we were saying was this is where the true justice came up. So I'm really hoping to capture some of your wisdom, because when we were talking about this, it was more than just how do I set up my future for my own success. I remember I asked you, well, why do you want to go to Yale? Do you remember this?
Vaguely. I don't remember what I said
You said
though.
justice. And
Yeah.
then I said, well, what about a sheriff that murders, let's say, a black man,
I
right?
remember. Yeah.
And then calls that justice. And then you said, no, 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 no. I don't want that type of justice. I want,
True justice.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
said, what does that mean to you? And maybe we could have you spend a little bit of time, like if you were to,
Yeah.
and then I want to, yeah. So if you were to say, one, how does that conversation resonate now with you 2 years later?
Yeah. I was choosing between Yale and Stanford. I remember because I had gotten into Stanford as well.
Okay.
And other schools, like I'd gotten into Duke and I think Amherst College. But Yale and Stanford were the two ones that I was really kind of debating between. I think I got into Cornell too. But it's been a while. But those were the last two on my list that I was really trying to vet and figure out, do I turn Stanford down? Like that was a big deal for me because my brother went to Stanford. I applied to Stanford twice before. Once my senior year of high school, and then a second time after I did Shark Tank. I was like, maybe I can go back to school, and this is how I go back to school. And even though I had been through their accelerator, their Stanford Stardex accelerator, they didn't accept me back then. And the third time they did accept me, and then I saw that the Dora School of like environmental engineering, the Dora School itself is like the environmental school at Stanford, is funded by a lot of fossil fuel money. And I'm not saying that Yale isn't also that way in certain ways, but much less so. Much less so. I feel like there's a lot less money that directly comes from fossil fuel companies. And with, I remember doing a lot of research and talking to a lot of people at Stanford who had gone through their equivalent of environmental engineering. And I remember there was a Knight Hennessy scholar that he was finishing up his PhD, and I asked him point blank if he knew about the kind of funding sources that he would have to be working with, would he have come to Stanford? He said no. That gave me everything that I needed to know. Yep. I knew that if I had chosen Stanford, that would be going against my core value of true justice. And I am very, very, very grateful that I chose Yale. Because not only did I have a community of other non-traditional students that were kind of in the same boat as me, but I had a dedicated dean. I had incredible professors that cared about my success. And more so, those professors weren't taking funding from fossil fuel giants. And look, I know you can do good with money, and money is important, but sometimes you can't make compromises, especially when that money from the Door School started influencing the objectives of research. They started looking at specifically carbon sequestration, which is in and of itself not bad, but when it's funded by fossil fuel companies, you know that they're trying to sequester as much carbon from the atmosphere so that they can pump it back into the atmosphere. And that's the whole thing. Like,
yes.
Yeah, it was a difficult decision for me to make. And look, if anyone chooses Stanford over Yale, props to them. That's a hard choice. Like, you do you. But I will just say that this is why I did not choose Stanford. And I've always been like kind of hesitant to talk about that, because to go against an institution in that kind of way, I'm only one person, right? What can I do? And today, true justice, in the way that I see it show up in a lot of the world, I think about your representative. I think about Ro Khanna. He's incredible. He's incredible. And I think about the legislation that was just signed, the Epstein files, the Transparency Act. And I heard true justice in a lot of the press conferences. Like, they literally said true justice. And I was like, that's cool. That's cool. That is just a beacon to my, my sense of what you need to do in order to like actually make lasting and fundamental change in this world. So yeah.
Yeah, and I want the reason that so I'm so glad you could speak on that, because this is something that this is another way that you changed me. I really appreciated. For me, I still have one of the ways that anxiety and kind of dealing with the current status quo shows up. I grew up in a family of athletes. My dad was a professional tennis player. My brother was internationally renowned. My brother was a nationally renowned soccer player. And in that circumstances, I was very competitive. And I know that when I go into elite spaces, I will kill myself to be number one. So it's something that
yeah, it's so funny. Like, I never expected to graduate. I didn't come into Yale thinking I was going to graduate with a 4.0 and walk across the stage and shake the president's hand. Like, that was not at all my intention. My intention was just to survive and get through my classes and be able to, get through my research that I was doing at NASA. Like, those were my two goals, and I was able to do them well. And along the way, I also did really well at Yale, which I'm proud to say.
Yeah, and I love that. The point of highlighting that is you challenged you challenged me to think a little differently. The idea that we can hold uh, truths, what I call freedom dreaming, dreaming of a different future with less harm, and then bring those dreams with us as a decision making framework.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that. I appreciated that you brought it into our dialogues. I appreciated that you stayed true to yourself,
Mhm.
that you used that as a mechanism to guide your own thinking, um, so that it was your internal compass that allowed you to decide on what meaning you wanted to make and how you wanted to do it. And I just really, I commend you for that. And I would ask you, imagine that there were people coming after you who wanted some words of wisdom and some solidarity in that, because that's not an easy thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So what would you
Yeah.
say to those folks?
Gosh. Let me think. I look to the people that are in Foothill wanting to go to these places. I'd say it's possible. It's definitely possible. I did it and I'm not a good test taker. I don't like do well in these really high pressure environments. And I won't ever say that like you shouldn't give up because like I gave up. I gave up my dream of working on Savy and getting investments from Mark Cuban, right? But I never gave up on myself. And I think a core of not giving up on yourself is making sure that you never give up on your education. And education can come in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be institutionalized. Sometimes when it is institutionalized, it opens up doors. I will say that from
Mm-hmm.
experience. But like when I was in my room working on Savvy back in 2017, I was learning how to code. I was taking free code camp classes online and yeah, you can do it in your own way, but also understand that there are a lot of resources out there like community college that can propel you to places where you never thought you would end up. I never thought I would end up at Yale. I never thought I would end up working at a place like NASA and loving my job. But never giving up on education just means that you never give up on yourself as a student. I will always be a student. I mean, there's still stuff about AI that is pertinent to my job that I don't understand. And I still need to make those textbooks, make those notes, and, understand it. But by never giving up on yourself as a student, you always make sure that you keep learning throughout your life. And that's the most important thing.
Thank you so much for that, Disha. Um, I wonder if I can end this in dialogue, because you and I've been really enjoying over the years the text threads that go back and forth and the
Yeah,
stories and all this. And recently, one thing that I love to do a lot, so I think I call this theories of power. So I have this, this came from really thinking deeply about the beliefs that we center. So I have this this model that I use. It's probably going to be in. This comes from the book Culturally Relevant Teaching, I believe, by it's been a Hammond. So the image that I'm about to show is mine, but the model comes from this book,
I see.
by Zaretta Hammond, and the idea behind this is, um, let's see, I don't even remember where I put my thoughts anymore. Too, I'm too old.
Gosh.
um, there it is. Okay, so then this would be 2025. This is for the keynote speech. I finally had a chance to. There's like so much work that I haven't had a chance to write up yet because I'm too busy in the classroom with students.
Yeah.
Um, but this one, research-based guidance, theories of power. Um, if I can find it. Tree metaphor for culture. Finally, dude. Jesus, you could see. I used to think my teachers were slow, and now I'm like, no, they were just busy. So I have this, and this is what we're really in dialogue about right now. The idea of surface culture, what we show on the outside, concrete artifacts of culture, dress, music, decorations, language, accents, greeting. So that's the leaves of the tree, so to speak. They say that shallow culture is how we behave, think, and act, our habits, how we show up in the world physically, emotionally, norms, nonverbal communication. And then they say deep culture, which is the shallow culture is like the this part of the tree, and then the deep culture is the roots, what we believe about the world, our mental models that we use to perceive, respond to, and navigate the concepts, how we learn, theories of learning and motivation. So one of the things I've thought a lot about, and it's in this dialogue right now, you're actually you are articulating out loud a deep sense of belief. It's one of the things that I try to revere and cultivate most in my students, because I believe that what makes meaning in the world is you. You have infinite brilliance, independent of your little things called degrees, the grades that you get. Your brilliance is unquantifiable. There has never been, and there will never be, ever in the history of the world, another being like you. And your unique identity is the thing that brings power and love and joy and the capacity to change. And so, given that idea, I've thought a lot about this concept of like, what is the purpose of education, right? And I actually, at my stage of my career, I think that the purpose of education is to get students in deep dialogue with their own dreams and imaginations, to empower students in community to imagine the world that aligns most deeply with the values that they have, perhaps of true justice, perhaps of family, perhaps of a world that is filled with less suffering.
Yeah.
And in that, I like to think of these two theories of power. I call one of the theories of power the power of ordinary people. This is a theory based on science, in fact, and I have two locuses of control, like where do we focus our energy? On individuals. So the idea that ordinary people like us are capable of extraordinary acts of human creativity and ingenuity, that what makes us special is not some predetermined genetic code, but the way we show up in the world, the way we learn, the way we engage. And then a collective power, which is the idea that when diverse human beings engage in collective struggle together, we are capable of doing things together that make huge impacts into the future. The elite theory of power, so the belief here is in the belief in the brilliance and capacity of ordinary people to build the world in ways that they believe in. And the power that they deserve to do that is derived from the community that they build together.
Yeah.
The reason and earlier, we're coming back to the start of our conversation, there is another theory of power. And this is what I call supremacy and anti-democracy. In that theory of power, the assumption is that there exists a hierarchy between people. So if you say that there exists a hierarchy so that any two people, you can say one is better than the other.
Yeah.
Right? That is the source of oppression.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, the purpose of education is to identify which one is better and then endow those people with the privileges of rulership.
Yeah.
Right? And I love this idea. The reason I wanted to highlight this is that what I hear you say is that you know for yourself that your capacity to do amazing things does not depend on the judgments of others. That you have infinite brilliance inside, not brilliance in terms of hierarchy, brilliance in terms of the capacity to do work that you care about.
Yeah.
And then I also see that over and over and over again, in my relationship to you, I have seen you act in solidarity with your, what I would call your maybe spiritual or professional kin, to build networks that are mutually supportive, that allow you to get the support that you need, the respect, the emotional support, I guess is the best way that I would use for it, while
Yeah,
also giving back. And from that standpoint, Disha, please vote me in the group of people that, as you continue to spread your wings and fly, will be there to support your visions. I cannot wait to see what you do in the world. I also hope that with the power that you have, that you find ways to bring others along and to cultivate their brilliance, right?
for sure. And everyone at Foothill, please come along.
Yeah.
Follow in Jeff's path.
Ah, not at all. Yeah. I do. I love to say that I'm a shoe shiner. I will happily shine your shoes. I wonder if I can give an assignment. The last thing that I'll say today, because it relates to this concept of transforming the world. It's one of my favorite. I don't remember. I have my. At this moment, I'm in the middle of about 30 books, and the one that is on my mind at this moment is this book. Um, because it gets, um, you know, so Wealth Supremacy by Marjorie Kelly.
Okay.
And it's the idea that, so what she does in this book is she highlights 7 myths of what she calls wealth supremacy. So white supremacy is the idea that a bullshit idea that whiteness is supreme.
Yeah.
It's a racist idea used to pit people of similar classes against each other.
Yeah.
Wealth supremacy is the idea that wealth is supreme. And so, like, for example, one of the myths that she talks about is the myth of maximization. No
Mm-hmm.
amount of financial wealth is ever enough. So,
Very relevant to today's society.
yeah,
Yes.
and what's crazy about this is that when igniting the, so I love to say that if changes are going to happen, it's going to happen from us. We actually have to, and the crazy thing is, this is actually not violence between people. This is a war of ideas. Like,
Yeah.
there's no need to hurt others. All
No.
we need to do is name the ideas, and in naming the ideas, the harmful ideas, once we name them, once we call them out loud, we can identify why they're harmful and what we would replace them with,
Yes.
right?
Ethan.
And I guess that's I just want to name out loud that you pushed me a little bit faster than I was ready to go. I didn't think I was going to be ready to like do this publicly for the next decade, and of course, Disha, you brought out the best in me. So what I would say is, cheers to naming those ideas, Disha, and I cannot wait to see the way that you transform our future. Um,
Thank you.
and thank you